Hello there, and welcome everybody to this Thursday edition of the We Want Houston podcast. I'm your host, Clayton Anderson. I also cover the Houston Texans for Toro Times of the Fansided Network. Joining me today is an individual who I respect and admire much, a guy who really doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. He is the award-winning host of the Locked On Texans podcast, Houston Texans analyst John Hickman. John, thank you so much for joining me, sir. How are you doing on this great Thursday morning?
Listen, I'm great, and I'm going to tell you something. I love the name. We won Houston, right? And we want Houston to do a few things. We want Houston to get to the AFC Championship game. We want Houston to make it to a Super Bowl. I think this is a year where it could come to fruition, maybe, if they are hitting on all cylinders, obviously on the offensive side of the ball. But, man, I'm extremely excited to talk Texas with you today, and I can't wait to get into some of these conversations.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. You see, he came, audience. You see, he came with the arm showing. So he's ready to go, man. So we're going to get to it. So let's just jump right in. This is going to be a very Nico Collins centric episode because of something that you stated about 9 days ago. I wouldn't say it was controversial, not at all. But I think you made a point about Nico to where it's more of a why aren't we talking more about this, in the midst of all these other narratives about injuries and whatnot. But I'm not going to get too far ahead of it. So here's what you said back on June 16th about our Dominique Stephon Collins, otherwise known as, the full government, otherwise known as Mr. Nico Collins. Nico, don't hurt me, bro. Don't hurt me.
I think this reiterates my argument from a couple of weeks ago regarding Nico Collins. Once he got that pay grade, like Houston needs for him to be healthy. But Houston has to feature him like a top 7 receiver and involve him a lot more offensively. Quietly, I think, if we really think about it, this is Nico's most anticipated season. I think this.
All right. So short and sweet, but very impactful. And real quick before you go, you actually reiterated your point. So I made a piece after this, right, where I kind of said, hey, man, you made some good points to this. I agree. And here's why. And this is what you said on the Locked On Texans thread on X. You said, let me reiterate, as much as Nico needs to stay healthy as possible, which you acknowledge that, Houston's offense has to make him more of a priority and make an assertive effort to get him involved throughout the game. So, John, I'm just going to ask you, man, so what led you at this specific point in time to make that stance on Nico Collins' use in this offense?
Nico Collins, when he's healthy, he puts up top 5 numbers, but he don't ever get top 5 receptions, targets, and things of that nature. And I think you followed up with that, on a tweet where you got Jamar Chase, who by no means am I comparing the two, but target-wise, Jamar Chase in the last 3 seasons of football, which is where we've seen Nico Collins really ascend, the targets are substantially different in favor of Jamar Chase. And I look at that and I say to myself, well, Jamar Chase is getting all them targets, and they still find a way to get T. Higgins the ball. They still find a way to get whoever's the third receiver involved. And I look at the Houston Texans and Nico Collins, and I think to myself, maybe it's because he's just a humble player. He's not a diva, right? You don't see. We've never seen Nico Collins on the sideline shouting at a quarterback, whether that's Davis Mills, Tyrod Taylor, whoever he's catching the ball from, right? We never see that from Nico. And so maybe that plays into the fact that too often you look at Nico Collins in periods in Texans games, he's an afterthought. I mean, this past year, when Nico Collins is not getting the ball in the first and third quarter, you're looking at the Houston Texans offense struggling. When Nico Collins is getting the ball in the second and fourth quarter, you're looking at the Houston Texans offense being able to put up more points on the board. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that coincides with the fact that get your best playmaker the ball offensively, and good things should happen. Good things will happen. The numbers back it up. And so when I look at Nico Collins, who I think is a great receiver, needs to stay healthy, right? That's always going to be a talking point for Nico Collins. I go back to the 2024 season where it felt like before he missed that 5 games, if y'all remember, he was tearing it up. He didn't even miss the 5 games with the hamstring. He ended the year with over 1,000 yards, but he was on pace for 1,700 yards. In 2026, with the return of Tank Dell, with the expectation that both Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel will be better, with the revamped tight end room, with David Montgomery coming to this offense, the Texans should still make sure that Nico Collins is targeted at least at least 10 times a game.
10 times a game. So to those, and again, hey, you're preaching to the choir here. So again, to his point, we're making the statistical argument here. So in the piece that I made to Jonathan Hickman's, stance, I got it over here. Since Stroud's debuted in 2023, because we don't count 21, we don't count 22. We count 2023 when, no disrespect to to Davis and Tyrod Taylor, because that was fun. Once he finally got a Pro Bowl level quarterback, right, you saw Nico Collins explode, and the data backs it up. So since Stroud's ascension in 2023, Nico was 9th in receiving yards at 3,420, tied for 19th in receptions, right? So that's where the drop-off is. He's tied for 19th in the NFL in receptions.
Look at that.
At 219. In parentheses, I have separated from first place by 133 catches, right? 19th in targets with 328. Again, separated from Jamar Chase by 177 targets, right? Then you go to second best in yard average, 15.6 yards. So that means he's a big play receiver. Once he gets the ball into his hands, big things just happen, right? 7th most receiving yards per game at 81.4, and then tied for 5th most receiving touchdowns at 21. So all that to say, Nico Collins is one of the best big play receivers in the NFL once he gets the ball into his hands. I think about that first play touchdown off of play action in 2023, Week 18's game against the Indianapolis Colts, right? I mean, shooting deep down the field and Stroud hitting them and just easy money, right? Beating the chest, 7-up Texans. But for some reason, and I'm going to throw it back to you. For some reason, Nico Collins has found it hard, besides the injuries, to just be featured. I also think about, you mentioned Cincinnati Bengals. I think about the fact that they managed to bring in a Joe Flacco, right? And he, with audacity, like, you remember that game, was it against the Steelers? Like, Flacco was a Bengals QB for all of 5 minutes, but he understood, I'm going to feed Jamar Chase. That's the best guy, so I'm going to hit him. And I'm going to hit him again. I'm going to hit him some more. And I'm going to hit him some more, right? So, John, I'm just asking the question. So, I mean, why hasn't that happened yet, right? We know the problem, but why?
Well, I think there are a lot of factors that we got to consider. One of the factors that I think we have to consider is the play caller here in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
They've went through 2 play callers in 3 years. And I think a lot of the second year in Bobby Slowick was a lot of confusion. I remember talking to Tank Dell when Nico Collins went down, and obviously this has nothing necessarily to do with Nico, but to highlight the confusion, I asked Tank Dell, this is when Stephon Diggs was still here in Houston, how do you think your role has changed now that Nico's out for some games? Now, you would think Tank Dell will say, hey, man, we working on things in practice, and Coach Slowick is finding ways to get me involved. I have to step up. The cliche things. You know what Tank Dell told me? My role hasn't changed. Flat out, my role has not changed. I still have the recording. So I think for the Texans in that second year where he went down, I still think there was some confusion throughout the year. And that was the first time where at the beginning of the season, they didn't get a chance to play a lot with each other. They had guys, they had Diggs, they had Tank, they had Nico, they had Dalton Schultz, they had Joe Mixon. So they were trying to figure out some things. Injuries sunk in, and then it hurt and it derailed the offense. But confusion on how to use these guys has hurt the offense, but just confusion on how to consistently get him involved. I don't think a lot of that second year, Bobby Slowick made it a point, again, an assertive effort to include Nico. And then got a new offensive coordinator and an even banged up offensive line where you got 3 to 4 different left guards. So much operationally that was the Houston Texans faced offensively, where for Nick Caley, I thought at the beginning of the year he was overwhelmed. They tried to get him involved, but things were just not happening. I put a lot of that on the shoulders of C.J. Stroud. And so now this year, the hope is, for me at least, you're going into a second year. Other players around you should free up some more opportunities for Nico Collins. But the sheer fact is, just throw him the dang ball. Right? He makes plays. Nico doesn't drop too many passes. Nico is a guy that, as you highlighted there, whenever he touches the ball, you're looking at 14, 15 yards per pop. And he's somebody that I think when he gets involved and defenses really have to game plan for Nico Collins for 4 quarters, then that's going to open up other opportunities for other receivers and playmakers on this offense.
Sure. And to add to your point, right, I got some DeAndre Hopkins stats for you real quick. Now, I know to some who are watching this, they may look at this and say, well, what does D-Hop have to do with this? We're talking about Nico Collins and all these reasons as to why he can't be successful. And there's someone who might say, well, because of all these things, what do you expect? Do we remember that DeAndre Hopkins at one point in 2015 had to deal with 4 different quarterbacks? Do we remember that his best quarterback was Deshaun Watson that he did not get until year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Right? But look at the target shares. His lowest was 93 targets in 2013, rookie season. After that, 127. After that, 192, 150, 176, 150. What was it? 163? Yeah, 163 and 150. Again, that 192 in 2015 now is between 4 different quarterbacks. And who are they? This was Brian Hoyer, Ryan Mallett, TJ Yates, and Brandon Whedon, right? And look at that yardage total, 1,521 yards, his second most as a pro, right? Look over to Nico Collins for a second, okay? 5 seasons. Again, we don't count 1 and 22, but 2023 on, 109 targets, 99 targets in 2024, and then 120 in 2025, right? So for me, yes, I hear, John, all these things about the offensive coordinators and CJ Stroud, but I mean, you basically made the point. Throw him the ball, right? Sometimes it's not that hard. Football is a beautifully complex sport, but it is not building computers. You are not trying to build a ship to space. You're not doing that. Nico Collins is 6'4", an inch taller than Julio Jones, about 222, right? Yes, he's had injury concerns, but when he's on the field, he's been the best receiving option probably on both sides, depending on what team you're playing. And the fact that Nico Collins has had such a difficult time getting the ball, I think for me, amidst everything else, I just think sometimes, man, teams get too cute. I think Nick Caley and Bobby Slowick, you said Slowick didn't, prioritize it. I think with Caley, I get it. You're trying to spread the ball around, kind of like Patriot style. You're trying to hit the running back. You're hitting the tight end, all this stuff. That's cool, but I have a 6'4" with a 40-inch vertical on the outside at X. Why is he not destroying guys, right? Why is he not dominating dudes? And that's the whole thing. So, but with that being said, it's kind of bridging to my next question. So let's just say, okay, all things break well, all things start to get better, and Nico Collins starts to get prioritized. John, I mean, what level can you see Nico Collins getting to if he is in fact fully unlocked?
Shoot, man, let me also add this. It ain't just getting him the targets too, by the way. When we look at other offenses around the league, we see them move guys around, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Nico is not this slow 6'4" receiver. He ain't slow. I think he ran a 4.45, and his long strides, allows for him to kind of blow past guys. So there is a lack of creativity there, though. Like, he doesn't always have to line up at X and start his route at X. You can move him around the line of scrimmage and create opportunities where you motion him in, then at the snap of the ball, you give him the ball and find a way to maybe pick up 4 to 5 yards. It ain't always about the big chunk plays. It's just about consistent involvement, which is what I really think the Houston Texans have lacked with Nico Collins. But if everything goes right, and we're looking at Nico Collins on the end of the year somewhere around that Chris Olave number of 156 targets. By the way, did you know Christian McCaffrey had more targets than Nico Collins last year? The rookie Emeka Ibuka had more targets than Nico Collins last year. George Pickens with CeeDee Lamb on the other side had more targets.
Yeah.
Wendell Robinson for the New York Giants had more targets than Nico Collins.
Not Wandale.
Yeah. So, old man Keenan Allen, that wasn't by a lot. It was by 2 targets. Had more targets than Nico Collins. The rookie up in North Carolina, Ted McMillan, more targets than Nico Collins. But if he gets into that stratosphere where he's in that top 6 or 7 range of targets, 1,400 yards plus easy.
Mm-hmm. No, I'd agree.
Easy.
I mean,
17 easy.
I agree. I mean, again, going back to what I said, we talked about earlier, like, The only thing that he was lacking in were targets and catches being because of the targets. Everything else, I mean, he has the second best yard per catch average since 2023, right? Like he's arguably of the three best big play receivers in football. He has a 40-inch vertical. He's 6'4". Like, I mean, what else do you want the guy to do? So I think for me, you got to do this on purpose. It's not going to happen on accident, right? Like you said earlier, you can have all these weapons, but you have a queen on the chessboard of Nico Collins that you can do versatile things with. I remember the first game against the Colts last year where they got him his first.
Describe him, by the way. God, that's a great way to describe a queen on the chessboard. Move him around, do whatever with him.
Basically, I mean, because look at him. Like I'm reminded of the Colts game the first time around. I forget which week it was, but that's when you got him on his first rushing touchdown. You hit him in the backfield on a little, half-foot jet sweep. He goes around, touchdown. Like, what's stopping you from doing that? And I just think it is being intentional for a guy who, again, like he's been fully a lot with CJ. Well, not fully, but for a guy who's found his strides and made a lot of money with CJ Stroud, in the building. I just think you've left so much meat on the bone with Nico Collins, and it's a shame because look, in football terms, Nico Collins, he's slowly getting up there in age a little bit. He's 27. Injury history kind of piling up. Hopefully that's done, but injuries. And at the end of this 2-year contract, he will basically be 30, right? So you would hate to miss out on a guy who's in the heart of his prime because you're trying to fit an arbitrary system as opposed to making him basically 30% of the system, right? And going from there. I don't know if you had anything else before I kind of switch gears on that, but that's kind of what I want to contribute to that.
No, that's it. When I look at Nico, I just think he's a guy that ultimate talent, and I also think this is why I think Texas fans should be excited for Jaden Hickens is because I thought Jaden Hickens came into the league more league ready than Nico Collins did when he first came into the league. So for Nico, it took him a couple of years. It also took him getting the quarterback. No disrespect to Davis Mills, but CJ Stroud is head and shoulders above Davis Mills. I think Davis Mills is probably.
Hold on, say that again. Hold on. I don't think people in the back heard you. Say that last part again. CJ is what?
Head and shoulders above, and by the way, Davis Mills,
he get
I think he's head and shoulders above Davis Mills, and that's no disrespect. You can make the case that, especially after this last year, where in a critical point of your season to make or break it, do or die, Davis Mills helps the team goes 3-0. I mean, you can make the case that Davis Mills is a top 3 backup in the NFL, all things considered.
Cool.
But it took a while for Nico to get where he is. Now people talk about Nico all the time. National talking heads, media around the league, NFL. People love Nico. The talent is there. The likability is absolutely there. But it's time for the Texans to treat him like a receiver where every offseason you're kind of contemplating trading him because he's great on the field. He's just a head case in the locker room, right? Get him the dang ball, and I think good things will happen.
Yep, and last tidbit before we close up shop on this segment here. You mentioned Davis Mills in Week 10 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was Nico Collins' highest yardage output of the 2026 season. He has 7 catches, for those, need reminder, 7 catches on 15 targets, which was also season high for 136 yards, 19.4 yards per catch average. No touchdowns, but still, the man exploded. There is no reason why, again, with respect to Davis Mills, but there is no reason why that should not be an average game for Nico Collins. Like, there's no reason why that should not happen at least maybe 3 to 5 times a season where you're targeting him, like you said, an average of 10 times per game on purpose. That is in the game plan. Book it. We are throwing it to him 10 times. But that's going to happen. So I don't know why not. But to kind of close up on Nico, so you talked about projections and what you think he could do easily, right? So I'll kind of ask you this also. Let's say if Nico Collins has an all-pro season for the Texans at receiver for the first time since D-Hop last did it in 2019, what does that do for an end-of-season result for the Texans? Do you think that can help generate and I get it, it's 11 guys on the field, it's not just Nico, but still, what do you think an all-pro season for Nico Collins could produce for the Texans at season's end?
I think we're looking at a better offense. And I think that's the only area of Nico having personal success that I can probably equate to somewhat of team success.
Mm-hmm.
The offensive side of the ball. And that's the side of the ball that struggled last year. So if Nico Collins has an all-pro season, I kind of wonder, what player benefits from, because if he's doing all that by week 8, week 9,
mm-hmm.
teams are going to really have to game plan around stopping Nico Collins. And so,
Mm-hmm.
how does that open up opportunities for other players, especially, a player like Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, the two
Mm-hmm.
rookie receivers,
Mm-hmm.
now going into their sophomore year out of Iowa State. Two different type of receivers, two different type of games, but how they benefit from it. Shoot, how the tight end group benefited from it, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
and then ultimately, like, if Nico Collins is doing that, and you got to wonder, will the Houston Texans face lighter boxes?
Mm-hmm.
So how is David Montgomery benefiting from that? So, like, I don't want to say wins and losses. I think that's unfair to put on a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say that if Nico Collins is having an all-pro season, then the offense must look better.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree because I think it's and this is where the play calling and really awareness of the flow of the football season kicks in if you're Nick Haley. I believe there is a scenario where, let's say, if you load up on Nico Collins early, let's say if he's dominating and he has that 2024 like start to the season where like he's looking like a top tier receiver in football, right? In spite of all these offensive additions, I think that's when, as a coordinator, and again, I'm not trying to do his job, that's just what I'm thinking. That's when you can leverage the defensive shifts to Nico, because it's going to happen if they're smart. They're going to start bracketing. They're going to start double and triple teaming Nico Collins if they're smart. Now, if they don't, then you just keep cooking them. That, I just think is that simple. But as soon as the defense starts to bracket and overhelp on Nico Collins, it should open the game up more for every other aspect of the team. For Dalton Schultz, for Brevin Jordan, for Tank Dell, for Jaden Higgins, for Jalen Noel, for Lewis Bond, for a bunch of dudes who, if you ask these guys, right, like, and they understand football, you want guys like Nico to eat because that makes it easier for everybody else to get open and get touches. It's the Antonio Brown effect where Juju Smith-Schuster, he looked elite. Why? Because Antonio Brown was over here eating, right? No disrespect to Juju.
Great correlation. Yeah.
Yeah. So no disrespect, but like you understood AB is over there. He's your undisputed one. That opens up for Juju, and he's going to ball out. So if that's your, if he's your Antonio Brown connection point, well, then yeah, your offense is going to be much better. It can breathe more, and it's just going to make things better. And then when the defense starts to spread back out again and thin out, and we got to guard everybody, hit him over the head with Nico Collins again. Like you just keep doing it because you just have so many weapons. Then it turns into whack-a-mole. You just take your pick. So I think that's what can happen. And look, with another year in this system, with Jerry Shaplinski helping C.J. Stroud, and just that offense, just having another year's worth of seasoning in the offseason, I definitely think now we're going from installation to let's go ball. And we really don't need that much more from the offense. But anyway, pie in the sky. But okay, so now kind of going from the current to let's go all time, right? We're gonna wrap this up in a bit. Nico Collins did something in 2025 where he became only the third receiver ever in franchise history to put up 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. The only two being the GOAT, Andre Johnson, and who I thought could have maybe challenged Andre, maybe not. Maybe I'm just being dumb. DeAndre Hopkins, the only other two. Outside of that, Nico is the only third one. Let me put this up for a second. So, speaking of all time, right, John, I'm going to pass this over to you. Nico Collins, I believe, will finish probably as the third best receiver in franchise history. I just don't know if he's able to catch up to guys like D-Hop and Andre, especially not Andre. But I think that all things considered, he definitely is going to leapfrog Owen Daniels. That's definitely going to be there. And again, by the way, Owen Daniels, tight end, being your third, most prolific receiver by yardage, crazy. But yeah. So I'll ask you this, John. It's kind of a two-parter. Number one, do you feel like Nico Collins, do you project Nico to finish his career with the Texans? Like beyond these next 2 years, like, is he going to remain a Houston Texan? And if so, where do you have him ranked, I guess, amongst your all-time receivers? I gave my answer, but what are your thoughts?
I think he's going to be cemented at third until somebody leapfrogs him. It's crazy. As great as D-Hop was, Andre still got 5,000 yards on him. So it's like that ain't getting caught. Shout out to Andre.
Again, while you're saying that right there, 13,597 yards.
Look at that. Look, that's just ridiculous. That is ridiculous. One of the best to ever do it, literally. But I think Nico's gonna be cemented at third. I mean, he's already cemented at third. I mean, Houston has to see what these young guys can do, or in the future, if they decide to, hey, maybe we got to move on from both Xavier Hutchinson and Tank Dell in next year's draft class. And it is some good receivers coming up in that draft class. So, maybe they make a difference there. But ultimately, he's going to end up at third all time with a lot of room to grow. I mean, he's at, where is he? 4,300 now. Can absolutely end his career at 7,000. And I think because he is Nick Caserio's first draft pick in that first draft class, I think Caserio is going to find a way. Obviously, he just took care of him. Major pay grades bump. I think they're going to find a way to bring him back so he can retire a Houston Texan. All of the great Texans and receivers, they've gone elsewhere.
Yeah.
I think, they didn't do right by Andre at the time. They moved on from him. They moved on from D-Hop. And when they traded D-Hop, I mean, that was just absurd. So maybe they do something differently here now that Nick Caserio is running things and not Bill O'Brien.
Sure. No, I agree. I kind of got some heat some time ago because I dared to entertain the notion at the time, but this was way before the extension. I said, hey, the Texans could consider, for financial reasons, moving off of Nico Collins. Look at that, dead cap savings and all this stuff. Got a lot of heat for it. But for me, I'll agree with your point. I think Nico Collins, the likability, as you said, is there. The fact that Nico Collins is one of the most adored Texans currently, and you can argue all the time. I do think that for a bunch of reasons, keeping Nico Collins in Houston for the duration of his career is just the move. And now how it looks, I don't know. Once you start talking about nuts and bolts of the numbers, and of course the market is going to dictate a lot, right? Because the receiver market is crazy. You got guys making 30, 40 million. Nico just hit 30 mil. So that is going to be a bridge you're going to have to cross when it gets here. But I do believe that because the culture is better, because organizationally the leadership is better, they just like him. And again, he's productive. I think they're going to find a way to make it work. It may not result in him like literally spending, his age 36, 37 season in Houston. But I mean, he's 27 now. I definitely think that anything before Nico playing years 33 and 34 in Houston, I think would be too premature. I think that would be a sad ending. So I think at least we got another maybe 3 to 5 years of Nico Collins, depending on what happens. And that's kind of my take. But yeah, but outside of that, John, I mean, that's pretty much it, man. There's only so much we can talk about with Nico. He's only one player of 11, and we're gearing up for training camp. So my last question for you, man, before we wrap up today, how are you faring in these Houston Texans streets now that we're still in the heart of this dead period and training camp is still really a month away?
Yeah. So I just had my man Jay Stevens from Locked On Buckeyes join me on Locked On Texans, and we talked about Caden McDonald. And let me tell you something, man. I think Caden McDonald would be a better pro than he was a collegiate player. I think when you add a player at his size with his quickness to a bunch with his IQ that Jake Stevens really did highlight, very smart player. And also, here's the benefit of Caden McDonald. Well, he just played for Matt Patricia, longtime defensive coach in the NFL. Also a head coach with Detroit for a while. That was just a disaster, but he's led some good defenses. But when you add a player like that alongside of Will Anderson, who's going to command a double, triple team. A Daniil Hunter who's going to command a double team. It frees him up a lot. And so I think the numbers will show that as well. I'm also on board, and I believe that Caden McDonald and Tommy Togiai should be Houston Texans starting defensive tackles this year. But right now, I'm finding different ways to talk about the Houston Texans. I don't have to do a show 5 days a week. I'm down to 3 days a week now. So it allows me time to find Texas content in between days. And I mean, people like the work that you put in, Streshens, his name is Garrett, Texans Jacob, obviously the great Texan beat reporters. You guys are putting out some great information, and more importantly, you put out some great talking points, like good things to keep people engaged. Like one of the talking points right now, and shout out to my boy, Dr. Baird, is what y'all call him, the Lewis Bond fan club, but just what Lewis Bond could possibly be for the Houston Texans, and I think that's a conversation that I personally can't dive into because I got 4 eyes and none of them have laid on Lewis Bond at practice yet. So when I get a chance to see Lewis Bond, I'll talk about Lewis Bond. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that we're looking at Lewis Bond at Houston Texans 6th receiver because they've moved on from Justin Watson, who provided virtually nothing for Houston last year. And you're looking at a younger player and coming out of college from Boston College, and he played under Bill O'Brien, former Houston Texans coach and de facto general manager. The one thing that I took away from Lewis Bond's game, and this is something very important, he's a zone finder. He understands how to find a zone, sit in that zone. So it ain't sexy, right? It ain't a 17, 18, 25-yard completion downfield, but it's smart.
Yeah.
And that translates to the next level, especially if you give a guy an opportunity. But what I'm getting at is you guys have done an amazing job with creating conversations and talking points. And right now in this dead period, I'm seeing what you guys are talking about. So I could pull from that conversation and get my thoughts on it, but also add to that fire of content engagement. So right now, I think everybody, for the most part, is leaning on, outside of OTA conversations and minicamp conversations, a lot of the conversations that I'm seeing has been built on what you guys are doing, which I really thoroughly enjoy.
No, man, it means a lot, man. And yeah, shout out to the, Houston Texans, fan base. Shout out to the content creators, like you said, from Streshens to Barrett to you, to excuse me, H-Town Rundown and so many. We're just fans, man. We're just fans who talk ball, and we got time. Like I said off stream, I'm a whole teacher who just got off for summer, so I got plenty of opportunity to, plug in and read and research and kind of look around, see what's going on. But like you said, you want to keep the conversations productive. You don't want to rehash old things. You don't want to be a hot take artist, right? You want to be somebody who adds to the conversation and moves the plot along, right? So, anytime we can do that for the fan base by just being fans ourselves means a lot, man. But, hey, I'm thankful for this, man. I appreciate you getting on with me. John, of course, people already know about you, but just tell them one more time, where they can find you at and what they can expect from you moving forward.
You can find me on social media at Houston Rockets giving me heart attacks. No, I'm just joking. But you can find me on social media at John_Hickman12 on Twitter/X and on Instagram at some sports guy with 2 Y's at the end. The Houston Rockets do stress me out though, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wasn't even going to ask you about. Yeah, I wasn't even going to ask you about the draft last night. That's a different story for a different day. We're gonna get there. But John, I'm thankful, brother. Thank you, man. Hope you have a great rest of your day, man. And talk to you soon, man. Go Texans, and we're out.